So even if a client or someone comes to me and it's something that I've never done before, like I always tell them, like, I haven't done that before, but believe me, if that's what you want done, we will get that done. I just need to do a little bit of research.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Destiny.
Hi, Brad. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you. One I've really been looking forward to. So, Destini Harris is owner and principal designer at Design by Destiny, and we've met at as Luann Nigera was speaking, and
Mhm.
I think many of us have connected through Luann. She's quite a great connector.
Absolutely. Thanks, Luann.
Right, absolutely. And I'm excited to get you on. I know you have a ton of experience. And one thing that really resonated with me, and maybe we start here, Destiny, is, this took me a long time to figure out in my business, yet here you are, I think, way ahead of the curve as far as I was in my business. I know something you've been passionate about is understanding the priority of working on your business as opposed to in your business. And what's difficult with that, as I'm sure you allude to, is, we have to create revenue. We have to support ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of times you start getting busy and you get consumed. And so how have you been able to take a deep breath, a step back and be like, okay, let's pause on some of this so I can work on my business that'll position me to be better moving forward?
I think really being really intentional about it. Honestly, I just woke up one morning and literally I heard restructure. It was like, okay. And I think it was like, okay, I think it's time for me to not only restructure the business, but just aspects of my life, um, my, children's lives, just all of that. And so I think just being really intentional about it. So what that looks like is once I heard that or thought that, I said, okay, well, I know I need to work on my business. I'm a note taker. I think that's how we met. Luann saw that I'd written some
Mhm.
notes about you in my notebook. She was like, Brad's over there. Like, and I'm like, where? She's like, right behind you. And I'm like, oh, wow. So anyway, so I have like in my office, stacks of paper, stacks of notes, stacks of things. And I'm like, okay, I need to be able to focus on these things, reread what I've written down for the last 3 years, implement some of these things. So I think the first step was like slowing down. It was like, okay, intentionally slowing down. What that looked like, I was like, okay, anyone contacts me, like I gave myself a date, like, okay, I'm not taking on any new projects until about 2 months out, 3 months out, whatever. And if I feel like I need more time, I'm giving myself that space. So that was the first thing. So what that looked like is in, marketing, really like just slowing down, honestly, just almost trying to get it to a halt. Because like you said, it is really hard to work on your business when you're busy in the business. And that's been me for the last 3 years. I think when I first got started, I remember it was actually Luann had this great analogy and she talked about how it's like driving in a car, racing down the street, but you're still building the car at the same time. And I was like, exactly, that's me. And I have felt that way literally for the last 3 years since I started my business. So at this point, I'm like, okay, time to step out of the car, rebuild it while not driving. So yeah, like I said, really it was just, being intentional. So to answer your question, like how, was just slow down. Slow down, stop. And honestly, it's so funny because literally I had a couple projects that just kind of came to a halt. Like one client, they were vacationing in Florida and they called me up. We were about to have a design meeting and they're like, so we've been praying about it and we're going to put a house on the market. I'm like, and we're going to move to Florida. And I'm like, okay, like congratulations, but the funny thing was because I wanted to slow down, it actually was a breath of fresh air. I actually was kind of happy about it, honestly. So, so that was just like one. And then there was like another one. She was like, I'm decided to put it on pause. So because I already had the mindset that I wanted to slow down, it wasn't even a huge disappointment to hear that from my clients. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And maybe you mentioned that there's kind of this epiphany. You wake up and you kind of felt like you used the word restructure, that it was time to do that. And I know the analogy is many of us can understand, you're driving down the road while you're building your car. Like I think all of us, we speak about how do we avoid the fires and the crisis moments, right? Which are really difficult in the design and construction world, because even for you as a designer, you have your design, you have it completed, yet the contractor's calling you, well, we need this, we need this. How is it?
Mhm.
And so you're, I don't want to say scatterbrained, but you get pulled and pulled, to all these different operations. And as you mentioned, you're doing, as a solo entrepreneur, you have the business development and the marketing and, all the existing clients you're working through. Do you feel outside the epiphany, was there something that resonated? What was it? Did you feel like your schedule was difficult to manage? Did you feel like there were too many emergency calls? Like, was there something that was like a tipping point that kind of led you to this epiphany of the restructure, um, word that came into your mind?
Absolutely. I think it was a couple of things. Um, First, and this actually was like last year, I think just personal, like health wise, realizing that I wasn't taking care of myself very well. So,
Mhm.
I went, funny enough, I went to a hair specialist because I was like, my hair is thinning and I feel like when I wash it, I'm getting
Right.
these clumps of hair. Like, what's going on? And she looks into this, microscope and is showing me like my follicles on a screen. And she's just like, are you under a lot of stress? I'm like, maybe. So I would say that was one when I realized like I wasn't taking the time to take care of me. And that was, red flag, sort of like number one. Um, and then, as I was telling you, I homeschool my daughters. So they're 6 and 8, Naomi and Olivia, and I love them to death. They're like my my world. And but I was feeling very pulled and strained, like in delivering the best education for them. My background actually is K-12 education. So I was an educator for over 18 years. So coming home and making that decision to homeschool them and then feeling like I'm not even the best teacher I was to hundreds of other students over a period of 18 years, like that really like hit my heart in a way. And others might say, no, you're doing a great job, but we're our own worst critics. So that was one of those things too. Like I was, like you said, pulled in a lot of directions. And yeah, I just felt that strain. And then you talked about being scatterbrained. And I feel like that started happening. Like I lost a groove like for a
Mhm.
minute. Like I was just, before at one point I had like a rhythm going. And then I was just like, what happened? I mean, I usually would wake up really early in the morning and just have like some quiet time. I might like read, pray. And that was a great start to my day. And I would get the best ideas and just kind of get me going. And when I started losing even that routine because I'm here, I'm there. And yeah, just like I said, just kind of felt like I'm losing my mojo, like I'm losing something. And it's time for me to step back. I need a pause. I need to regroup because this is not um sustainable. And I mean, and luckily it wasn't really having an impact, I would say, on my projects per se. But yeah, I just knew it was time. It was time for me to like pause. Because I mean, I pretty much like found myself in design. It wasn't even intentional about becoming a designer. Like I ended up being a designer almost like unintentionally. So yeah, that, I was like thrust into it and you're like, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing? So yeah, hopefully that helps you understand where
It
that came
does. I think the physical health is an interesting and very important angle because many of us throughout our life, I know there's been moments in my career where my physical health has definitely been on the back burner, not a
from.
priority. And it's a difficult in a way because, at principle, as we're speaking about this destiny, I think it's pretty straightforward. Anyone listening will be like, yeah, you have to take care of yourself physically. You have to be in top shape and nutrition and, for your mental acuity, for your mental stability, for
Mhm.
to be at your best for your children, as you mentioned, and running your business. But yet, as the operator that you are, and I'm sure many of us are, when you go work out, you're like, am I being selfish? I could be doing this, I could be with my kids, I could be working on this. And so it's this like voices in our head that are pulling us. But how,
Mhm.
how have you been able to make that a priority, especially the physical health to make time for that and make that, um, to overcome the voice in your head, if you will.
So I'm smiling because I remember when I was messaging you. I know this is not going to take you by surprise. Pickleball, like pickleball, pickleball
It's huge
has.
now, so it's a
Oh
big
my
deal.
gosh. And it's so crazy because my neighbor for months had been asking me about it, telling me you should come play pickleball. And again, I was so busy, and I was like, "Oh, I'll come, come with you. Try to come this day." And then, literally months, almost half a year to a year, and I just never did anything. It was funny because it was in December, and I was listening to a podcast, and I even try to go back and find the one that I was listening to before this recording, but I couldn't find it. But anyway, and it was another designer, and she was just talking about some of what we're speaking about, like making time to take care of yourself. And then she also talked about the importance of play, and that as adults, we still need to play, and that playing will also help us be even more efficient in our business if we balance it correctly. Like if I get this done, I get to go play. And she mentioned in the podcast about Thursdays were her day to go play pickleball for like 2 hours. And I'm driving up 495 coming back from North Carolina. And I'm like, you know what? So I hit up my neighbor and I said, okay, yeah, you want to, when are you going to play pickleball? And he said, actually, I'm going today. And that was like December 31st. And I've been playing pickleball ever since. And so I say all of that because, like you said, I was trying to work out in the mornings, and I'm just not like a workout person. Um, and that sense of going to the gym. But pickleball is very fun for me. It also presents another challenge in my life because I'm in there and I'm, playing with these seniors. And I'm like, man, I can beat them. And they are tearing me up. So it's like this other challenge where I'm like, okay, you're going to get better at it. And I say all of that, going full circle. I actually played yesterday, yesterday. And I mean, I'm like doing really well. Like people are like, oh my gosh, she's like getting good. And I thought to myself, Destiny, this is just like your job, your business. If you put the effort into it, you keep at it, you will get better, you will grow. And it was really encouraging because there's definitely been times that I felt like stopping, like, okay, this might just be too much. But it was like, no, it's a challenge. You're just going to have to do it. So anyway, so to answer your question, yeah, like playing pickleball has helped me. And funny enough, it gives me energy. Like I'll come home and my joints and everything are sore, and I'm thinking I'm about to crash, and I come home and I'm just like, I have all this energy. So that's been super helpful. I think my diet, just being really intentional about that as well. And knowing like, okay, if I'm eating junk, I'm going to feel like junk. So, on those aspects, like really trying to take time for me. And making that a priority. And then, also thinking about how I structure my business. Like one of the things I know, like, yeah, if you don't have certain boundaries, if you don't have certain processes, it will begin to pull at you. I'll be all over the place. So, I was just like, okay, where do I have to tighten up? And with that being said, I would plug this in there. Like, I've had assistants. And so one of the things that and I didn't say this before, but another reason why I was like, okay, I need to slow down is also because I was just like, I have to refine my processes so that I can be more effective with like staff, like having people help me in this business. Like I need that, but I need to also slow down so I can create those processes, refine them. We have some that will really help like elevate us as a team when, with the restructuring and everything. So I did want to circle back around to that.
Yeah, it's a great point. What's interesting about the pickleball, there is something to be said about the play, the competition, the
Mm-hmm.
outlet, and all of us have different outlets. And if it's traditional gym, or maybe you're in workout class with groups, or pickleball or basketball, right? I mean, golf, I mean, there's so many different variations. What's interesting to me is, I mean, yes. And really the theory here, Destiny, as you're mentioning, is that by sharpening your saw, by sacrificing now for some time, implementing processes, it's going to set you up for freedom and flexibility later, as the years come. At the same time you're trying to do this, you're trying to reevaluate your business, you're homeschooling a 6 and 8-year-old. like walk me through that, the balance of, again, because even if you're taking I don't want to say a break, but as you're reconfiguring, Designed by Destiny, and yet you're homeschooling, how do you find the time to balance all this?
That's why I'm slowing down because I honestly feel like I have to think through some things. And it's funny, I'm so thankful for this opportunity because it allowed me to slow down and begin to think about, like, we didn't talk about exactly what we would talk about,
Right.
but literally this morning I was like, okay, just again, get quiet and just think about what are some things you might want to say. And one of the things that came to my mind just this morning was about what was my superpower as an educator. And it
Mm.
was strategy, planning. Literally, I had administrators who would ask me to help mentor other teachers. I was featured in one of my districts. They did like a whole, professional development series and had professional videographers come in and record me in my classroom and with my students. And so I was, education and leader. And part of that was the planning piece. And I realized that I have not been making enough time to plan, whether it is, for my girls. I think I've been leaning on the fact that I have so much experience as an educator. So I'm not intimidated by educating them at home, but there's still a planning aspect to that,
Hmm.
because they are in two separate grades. So the needs of Olivia at 6 are completely different than Naomi at 8. And then likewise, I thought to myself, like, Destiny, you can do this even in your business. Like, you are very analytical, you're data driven, you will strategize, but you have to give yourself time to do that. Like, you have to, like, so that's the whole point. Like, you have to slow down. And then when you give yourself that time to think, all of the little pieces, it's not a lot that I have to like completely restructure, but there are some key things that I do. So how do I do that? Like I said, by so let me give you kind of like our typical schedule, which is supposed to be like, okay, we wake up and my girls have me, and ideally, that's in the morning. And like I said, I do have an assistant. She helps me with the girls. She actually helps me in the business. She's my everything assistant. But she's leaving me next week, to go
Uh-oh.
get married. I know. And I'm like, so like I said, it's just like all these things. And again, what did I say before? It was sort of like perfect timing. Like all these things started kind of dropping off to allow me time to restructure, if that sort of like makes sense. Even her departure is in some ways those, it's a bittersweet, yeah, it's just bittersweet. So anyway, so how am I doing that? Like I said, slowing down. So now using that time that I would have been working on like projects is now what are you using that time to work on the business, spend more time with the girls, or devote attention to them that's not divided, if that makes sense, because that's where a lot of it was. It was like, and then on top of that, sometimes I would feel like, because I love design, I love this work, but I didn't want to feel like my children are a burden to me, like, oh, I can't do what I really want to do because I'm over here doing this, and then likewise, the reasons that I am homeschooling my babies, I don't want the business to detract from that either. So like you're saying, it's kind of like finding that balance. And I think, I've just been brainstorming, schedules, just like, okay, what is a realistic schedule that you can put together and literally stick to it.
Hmm.
And like you're saying, just protecting those time. Like if this is for them, you protect it at all costs. Like don't someone wants to see you in the morning and that's when you're supposed to be with your girls. You can't do that. And then likewise, when it's time for me to work on the business, like, okay, having those structures in place where, okay, girls, now you can't distract mommy too much because now I'm over here trying to do this work, if that makes sense. Um, so yes, it's a lot of strategy, and I'm like and to be honest, Brad, once I discovered that's what I needed to do, it has literally taken me about a month and a half since the idea came to almost unwind, like to get to the place where I can almost think about any of this that I'm talking to you about, like the work. It's me reaching out to potential coaches. Like I've realized, I'm like, okay, I think I'm at a place where I do want to, hire someone to help me, help me brainstorm, strategize a little bit, who's been in the business a little bit longer than me. Um, so it's kind of gearing up. It's a new bookkeeper that specialize in interior design, like just doing those things that I, kind of gearing myself up that when I start back up, like full fledged, like I'm ready. Um, and I hope I'm not being redundant, but
No, not even. What's amazing is as you're speaking, I could tell. I mean, you're such a critical thinker, right? I mean, and really, this goes back to your background. You mentioned the education, and yeah, there's so much. Like, if you're going to homeschool, there's so much strategy, and as you mentioned, planning, right? Because you have kids, daughters different ages, and their curriculum's going to be different. You have to plan each day ahead so they have their coursework and everything else you're doing. What's interesting is I can see that correlation now running your business because there's so much strategy and planning that this is natural and inherent to you, as you mentioned, that you were sought after for this in the educational atmosphere, background. And so hence why I feel like it's easy for you to take a step back from design. Not that you're taking a step back from the business, but you're reevaluating and refocusing and again, coming up with a strategy because you know that if I'm prepared, if I have this strategy, the long-term benefits are so valuable for me.
absolutely, absolutely. And like I told you, I look at it like, and I was sharing with another designer friend of mine. I look at it like any restaurant, McDonald's, and I think McDonald's comes to mind because there's one. We live near Air Force Base here in Maryland, and there is one. I don't frequent it much, but I would pass by and I'm like, oh, they've shut it down. And it was so funny because this particular McDonald's, um, they had like a conveyor belt on the inside. So there was like a space, a path in between where the food was being prepped and where the window was for the drive. So it was a really awkward layout in the store. So like if you walked in, like you could literally be So they had anyway, they had a conveyor belt. I literally one day just recorded it on my phone and sent to my brother, like, look at this. This is so weird. So to get the food from where they're prepping it to the window, it has to like go up this belt and I guess drop down or something like that. And I was like, that's so awkward. Um, and so when I saw that they were renovating the store, I said to myself, I know they're going to take care of that problem. Like, because it's clearly a problem. And I haven't been in there to see if my hypothesis is correct, but I'm pretty sure that it is. But I say all that to say, it made me think about this season that I'm in. Like sometimes you have to close the doors, like because when the store is being remodeled, like they're not servicing any clients. They're not, helping anyone. They're just working on making the building better and the process is better. And and so I was like, Destiny, that's sort of like what you need. You need to take a step back and just work on the business and make it better. And wherever, not that they weren't making good burgers or, shakes or fries or whatever, even with this abnormal setup, but I'm pretty sure they would have been more efficient not having to use this conveyor belt and, whatnot. So that kind of gave me, when I saw that and thought about it, I was like, that gave me the inspiration. Like, you know what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't try to do this, work on your business and still work in it and still homeschool. That's the key piece to all of it. Because I know like there are a lot of designers who they do both and it's great at the same time, but it's a time factor. Like my time is very limited
Right.
because it's split in a way and I cannot jeopardize, the education of my daughters. Um, I just can't do that. So I have to, there are 4 or 5 hours in a day potentially
Mm-hmm.
that I just don't have to give to a business, if that makes sense. Or that I have to be really strategic about. And sometimes it was like when I got started, like I would wake up super early, I'd go to bed late, but you can only burn the candle on both ends, but for so long. Like my dad would say, you'll burn out. And I
Mm-hmm.
think honestly, that's sort of like the place that I was getting to, like I felt burnt out. And so I feel really good about taking this time to, again, step back and recharge because it's not a either or. It's not like, okay, homeschool or do the business or send your girls to school and now do the business. It's not that. Like I firmly believe, because I'm not the first to do this, whether, homeschool or just have kids with, there are other designers that have kids with them at a young age and have built great businesses. So I'm like, you're not the first, you're not the last. You can do this, but you have to have a good strategy for it. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, it's, as you've been speaking, Destiny, I think, most of us as humans, we're reluctant to change, right? It's easy to be comfortable. It's easy to be, kind of, status quo, running our business, operating day to day. Um, from you, I mean, just as you speak about, the homeschool and changing careers and reevaluating your business, like change to you is not like something that many of us struggle with, right? That may be one of your superpowers. Is there a unique part of your background? I mean, what has led to that where like change or strategizing or reconfiguring, doesn't really take a toll on you? Maybe it does. Maybe you're just, but why do you feel that that's such a strength for you as opposed to many of us that struggle with it?
That's a good question. And what comes to me is being an educator. When I taught students, strategy is, you have to be strategic when you have a classroom of 20 something students, all at varying, levels. And especially if you're teaching, any grade levels that have those end of the year tests, so you're
Yes.
being evaluated on that. And most of my career were in those, whether, fourth, fifth. I mean, I did all the grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school. Um, but definitely in those testing grades. And I say all of that to say, one of the key things to being a good educator is not just planning the lesson or executing the lesson, is knowing when the lesson is effective. And you need that data like instantly. Like you have to know when your class, your students, they're getting it and when they're not. You not just as a class, like down to a student, like this student did not get it. And now what am I going to do to help them get it? And that's not a question that you can ask a week later, a month later, if that makes sense. Like that's like real time data, and you have to make real time pivots. Again, if you're going to be a good teacher, a quality educator. So when you asked that question, it just made me think of that. I remember when I was an educator, like I literally would shut down the school. And I mean, like past the janitorial staff, like they would be gone. I remember I worked at a school in North Carolina, and the teachers had a code to the alarm. And I would lock down the school plenty of nights. It was like, I'm the last one gone. They were like, bye. And at the time, my name, mom is artist, like, bye. And I say all of that to say I would be in my classroom after all the kids left, and I would go over their work and just see what's working, what's not working. And you know, pivot. Like I said, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to have to reteach this lesson a different way because it's not working this way. And I do feel like I've done that in my business. Um, I've definitely done that in my business. And it's so funny, even with my assistant, I was literally telling her this not too long ago. I said, I can tell when you are not getting what I'm talking about. Like, I can tell. Like, I can see when we're having meetings or I'm explaining something. I know. And so, one of the things she would say to me, she really appreciated. She said, you really do a good job of explaining and, really giving good details. And I said to her, I said, that's because I also know I can see it in your face when you are not understanding what I'm saying. And my job is to make sure you understand clearly what I'm saying. And so a lot of that comes from being an educator. Like that's the whole point. Like I have something in my head that you need to understand, and I have to figure out a way to communicate that information to you clearly and effectively. So change, yeah, that surprisingly probably is a superpower. Like I'm willing to pivot quickly. The weird thing about design or having a business, when we put certain things in place,
Hmm.
sometimes it's not as easy to pivot like on the spot just like that. Meaning if I have a service and I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's not working right now, and I want to change my website. Well, guess what? That might not be an easy, like, oh, I can just go and erase that off my website. Or I've created forms or, brochures, things for clients, and it has this information in it, even whether it's a price or something like that. You have to now go and change all of those things.
Mhm.
And that's not the easy part. Or you get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
um, that's kind of like where I'm at now. Like, Dustin, you have to now go back and you almost have not a complete reset, but you now need to go and see what are those little changes that you need to make. Like, I may be communicating that to new clients or prospective clients, um, but it may not be documented now. Like those, if that makes sense. Like, we have SOPs that might not be in there, or um, you need to update your welcome guide because, yeah, you notice something you need to change, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is the time now to make sure, one, that the designer that I have become over the last 3 years and all that I've learned, which I tell people all the time, I've learned more in these last 3 years of my adult life than I have at any period of my adult life. I've learned so much. Design has taught me about business, entrepreneurship. It's taught me so much about myself. And so it's just, now I have to take all of that change, like kind of like what you're saying. Like, there's so much that has changed in me, around me, since when I started 3 years ago. And now I have to ensure that when I present myself and when I'm running my business, that that's what people see and that's what they get. They get the better version of me than they would have gotten 3 years ago.
Hmm. I love that. And what's amazing, I mean, you could just see the passion. I mean, even in education, I mean, just the hours spent and the time and commitment, right? It's, you can't, there's no substitution for someone's drive and work ethic and dedication to the craft. Why make the change? Education to design, pretty big change there, big risk. There's probably a lot of fear and trepidation to now going from like a secure background to now, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm on my own.
So that's a good question. And I loved education. But when I got out, I wasn't in the classroom anymore. So now I was working, school improvement coach, which is about change. Like, we need to improve some things. And so we're going to get you to come help us figure out what we need to change and how to make that change. Coaching teachers. I was at that level when I actually left. But honestly, COVID facilitated the change. My oldest at the time was about to start kindergarten. I want to say in 2021. Yep, the fall of 2021, my oldest. And we looked, and the schools here are like, but we looked around and nothing just really like hit home. Like, and then it really was like, did I want my kindergartner going to school masked up, honestly? And I was like, no, because I, as a teacher, would not want to go masked up. And I knew that because the year before, I decided to, quit or resign. Like I said, I was working as a coach. It was COVID, full blown COVID. And some of the teachers had gone back into the classroom. And now, as a coach, I was like, how do I coach them to do something I've never done? Meaning, whether it's teaching virtually, because no one had really been doing that. I hadn't done that in 18 years, like had to teach a class, completely on a computer. And then we had teachers who were in the building, but were doing like a hybrid. So they had some students in the classroom and some students were still at home. So there was a whole like technology aspect of it that I found some solutions and presented it to my school administration. And so they were like, okay, look, let's try this out. So now I have to come in person to try to set it up and see, will this actually work? And again, just like, my thought was like, I need to do what we're asking you to do to be able to also, just kind of like advise administration on like, yeah, these are the limitations of the teachers. Like, we can only expect but so much from them because, like, I've been in this classroom. I know how hard it is, one, even to teach with a mask on
Oh,
all day
so
long.
hard.
Yeah. It was just like, I mean, I did a lesson or two, and I remember just being like, I would be exhausted. I can't do this. So the point being was when my daughter, it was time for Naomi to go to kindergarten. I just was like, I don't want to be in a classroom like this. I don't want her, kindergarten. That's when you're learning sounds, phonics and all those things. And it's just like how a lot of that is being able to hear the sounds properly, looking at the teacher's lips when they're, forming, sounds and things like that. That's not, I don't want her first year being like that. And so that ultimately really was the decision that brought me home. It wasn't necessarily that I was thinking this was going to be long term, but it was that year that was the catalyst for me becoming a designer, because it was December 2021. We go to North Carolina. My mom finally opens the door because she was very hands off during COVID and was like, "You are not coming in this house. I don't care how much I love you and these babies. I stay, keep your germs outside my house." So she finally opened the door and, walked in. It was just like so much was going on in that house. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I tell people all the time there was it was a 3-bedroom house, and the room that had the bed that I could sleep on had all this stuff in it. And she's like, just sleep on my bed and I'll sleep on the sofa. You sleep with the girls. I'm like, I am not sleeping on this bed with these 2 little girls. Because my youngest, you will wake up and a foot will be right here in your neck, Brad. I'm telling you, like she was like a clock on the bed. She gonna rotate a couple times at night. Like, no, this is not about to happen. So I literally make us like a path into the room because you couldn't hardly even open the door. And I tell people like I made this much space, literally this much space to lay down on that bed that night. And there were boxes towering over me to my right that night when I slept because I had to pile stuff up. And I'm just like sleeping there like this, trying not to move. And I say, I woke up the next morning and I clearly heard, "Help your mother get this house in order." And from that, it was like, okay, well, let me, just kind of help her, call my husband, like, "Hey, can we spare like $5,000 and help mommy kind of spruce up the place?" So he's like, like, "Okay, cool, sure." And, honestly, I'm thinking like, I'm gonna do a little something, maybe buy a new sofa because it felt like when I sat in it, I was hitting the floor. It was just like little things. But then the more as that couple of days went by, I'm like looking around, I'm like, no, she needs more than just a new sofa. And she's been in this house that year, made 30 years, 2022. So long story short, um, that like let's spruce up turned into a full home renovation. And that was a surprise for her. And basically I told her I wanted to declutter. And she knew like from when I was a teenager, that I like to like decorate and design. Like whenever the house got changed around, the furniture got changed, anything new in the house, it was me doing it. So again, like most designers, they'll say like I should have known because I was doing this when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So when I asked her to come to Maryland and just let me clean up, that wasn't odd to her, because even as a child, she would be out at work and she'd come and was like, "Mommy, you can't come in the house because we're cleaning up and we got a surprise for you." So she was used to me doing that. So, so I just, told her to come up to Maryland. And like I said, she knew I was, trying to do a little something. She knew I was going to do something. She had no clue of what she came home to. Like we had completely redone her kitchen, bathroom, like inside and out. Literally the contracting work was done in 2 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
2 weeks. And then I had the third week to move everything back into the house. And she thought she was going to be here for like a week and a half. I told her a week and a half, but I knew it was going to be a little bit longer. um, but yeah, and that was, I say all of this, I tell this story because like I said, that was December. When I went down there and I came back like in January. So I, left, came back, was planning, had my first trade day while I was in North Carolina, not knowing it was a trade day at the time. because it was COVID, and contractors need to see this. Like you're saying, hey, can you do this for me? They need to see it, like
Right.
to give you a quote. And I'm like, but how am I going to do that? And she's in the house. So like one of her friends takes her. I get her to take her out. Her friend takes her out for lunch, and literally in 3 hours, I spoke with about 10 contractors between plumbing, electrical, flooring, like everything in 10 hours. And so again, I'm trying not to give the whole story, all the details, but honestly, that's what got me into design because um, that 5,000 increased exponentially.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
Like
sure it did.
by the time it was said and done, like now my husband did, like I did call him later, like, so can we get a little bit more? He's like, you do the budget, you know what we have. So I'm like, okay. But even what I said or told him, we use quite a bit more.
Like a
And
normal contractor, right?
like I said, it was like this brought me into the world of all of this. Like it's so it's crazy because I'm just like, and at that time I was not thinking about being a designer. That's the point of the story. It's like this was just something for my mom. But I come back home February, after being gone for a month, and I have $29,000 on one credit card.
Oh,
Just one. Now, that's not in addition to all the others, but on one particular one,
oh my goodness.
I had 29,000 that had kicked in like a month and a half. And my husband didn't know about that one. He did not know about that one. That was my credit card. And honestly, like this, Brad, we're because they pulled up the floors in the house. Like she had some water damage, some
Yeah.
rotten floor joists, and all kinds of stuff going on that was not planned for. There was no contingency. I didn't know what contingency meant at that time. And in my mind, I'm just like, just do it. Like, and you'll figure it out. So like I said, I came back and yeah, got back on a Friday, and on Sunday, someone in our neighborhood app said, "Can someone recommend an interior designer?" And I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do nothing with no one's house. I just got back home. I'm exhausted. And I hear that little voice say you can help. And 3 times I heard it, say you can help, say you can help. So the last time I just put, I can help you. I got 3 calls that day, and
Wow.
3 phone calls. The first lady said, "Do you do 3D design?" I'm like, "Ma'am, I am not a professional designer. I do not do 3D design." She's like, "Okay, thank you." The second lady says, "I'm looking for a mentor." I'm like, "Ma'am, I need a mentor. I'm not
Yeah.
a professional designer." Third lady says, um, she wants some help with a room in her basement. She's like, "Can you come over right now?" I'm like, okay. It's Super Bowl Sunday, 2022.
Oh my goodness.
I go to her house. Long story short, she was my first client. And I say all of that to say, circling back to homeschooling, that would have never been possible had my girls not been homeschooled,
Hmm.
because they would have been in school. I would have never been in North Carolina during that time working on my mom's house. You and I would not be here having this conversation. Like none of this, my whole life changed by homeschooling my children. Um, so yeah.
It's such, the feedback and like as you are, the introspection, that you're looking at to be like, if I didn't make that decision for homeschool with the mask mandates and knowing how important it was for the good education and the instruction and how that, it's funny how you have these turning points in your life, right? That kind of put you where you need to be and, find the right people. And then of course Destiny, you have to, put in the work and the effort, and you have to, you got back, and like most people doing construction for 2 months, it'd be easy to be like, I need a break, but you're like jumping on it. You're not even taking a day off, and you're taking that first lead. And so it goes to show that like that door opens, but you got to kick it down in a way. Um, how do you feel, especially going into design and focusing on design, going through that experience as far as, working through construction and managing trade partners and subcontractors, and like any renovation, you open up the wall and you find these surprises. How did you feel that that experience has played a role in your expedited growth and maybe your understanding of construction as a designer now?
Um, I think that one, it takes me, I have to one still reflect on it, if that makes sense. Because like at the time, I wasn't looking at it like, oh, this is I'm a designer. I'm just doing a project for my mom. But over time, it's been where when those situations now come up in the business now, I resort back to, oh, what was that like? Think back to that experience. Was there something similar to that that happened then, if that sort of like makes sense, especially in the beginning? Um, Now, for me, the planning piece, going back to planning, like I think if nothing else, I understand how important it is to have one, the systems in place and like have a process for walking through whether it's just furnishing and decor or a project where you're dealing with contractors because they yeah, depending on who you're working with, like it's like
Totally fair.
I was let me say this is a I'm not trying to down anybody, but what I have learned is that contractors are leaning on you as a designer for the kind of like the what. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, they know how to do it, if that sort of like makes sense. So if I say, like, I want, um, I'm gonna keep it simple. I want to put some recessed lights in this room. I know what I want to do. They know how to do it. I want to put in some nice trim work on this wall. I want to knock down this wall. And can that happen? Like, I know what I want to do, but they're responsible for the how. And the more information I can give them as to what I want, then it makes them more efficient and I'm going to get what I want. I've learned like I can't leave things up to their imagination, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So
For
that's
sure.
one of the things I'm like still one of those things I'm refining is making sure when I'm dealing with contractors, like I've given them every bit of information they need to set us all up for success. And like I can't and when you're like still rushing through things or not having enough time, that's where you'll find like, oh, I didn't think about that or I forgot about that. You get what I'm saying? And then that's where, you're going to get issues that could have actually been avoided.
Hmm. Yeah, the foresight's really hard. I mean, it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know, right? And so until you've had the experience and the surprises, and maybe in your experiences with poor contractors, experience with good ones, you can kind of
Mhm.
decipher things. And it's funny how, at least for me, as I've made mistakes throughout my career, they become ingrained, right? And I'm like, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna do that again. And so you become a lot more knowledgeable as you're communicating,
Mhm.
whether it be clients and vetting them, whether it be working with the design and architecture team, and so you just become, you know, a lot more business savvy. How have you found? Because of course, none of us want to just have to make every mistake to learn through, the pitfalls of our business. What networking? What mentors? How have you expanded your horizon as far as the design community?
Excellent question. I reach out to whoever will let me, honestly. And I will say I'll name drop a couple people in my immediate area. Like I would say Duval Reynolds, Asha Mai A, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, Sharon Braylock. Those are like my three designers like that are in my back pocket. Uh, if a new opportunity approaches me, something I haven't done before, or like I just have questions, I reach out to them. Like I say, like, hey, and they've all, whether it's to be a text or like, some of them I pick up the phone call. Duval, he's like, he's all over the place. So I don't get him as much. I try not to bother him as much, though he's always super, super willing to help me. But I say, yeah, that's number one. I love podcasts. Like podcasts have taught me so much. Um and it's funny because even when we talk about slowing down, like I notice like I wasn't feeding myself through podcasts as much as I was at one point. Like it was like, what was Destiny? What's going on with you? Like podcast was like inspire me, keep me motivated, keep me moving, inform me. Like I learned so much, and then I was like, you're just kind of, yeah, like something's not right. So to answer your question, definitely that local designers, and then there are designers even all over the United States. Like I'm part of like a network that I'll reach out to again if I have questions. um, research. I definitely am a researcher. uh, so I just always feel like the information is out there some way and I can find it. I think that goes back to the educator in me. Like I will teach myself something, and I'm just not afraid to say I don't know, honestly. Like I'm what I've learned is that honesty is the best way to go. It's the
Mhm.
best way to not have a bunch of stress. I'm did like a major mishap, kind of, not, I wouldn't say major mishap, but just something like you said, like I'm like I won't do that again. Or I'll check for that next time. And that kind of a little mix up with a custom bankette piece that we're trying to build out. And you know instead of me just like pretending like nothing happened, I just told the client like, hey, this is what happened, blah 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 blah. And even up to yesterday, I was like, Dustin, you feel such a weight lifted off of you because you were honest. So even if a client or someone comes to me and it's something that I've never done before, like I always tell them, like, I haven't done that before, but believe me, if that's what you want done, we will get that done. I just need to do a little bit of research, and so yeah, so I just think yeah, that's been how I've grown a lot. I lean on my designer friends, and like I said, just all over. Even as I'm thinking about, I'm like thinking about Erica Ward, um, who just called me a couple weeks ago. Met her at High Point, and literally it was right on time. It was a first for me. She called me right on time and just poured into me that day. And so I'm always so appreciative of more experienced, seasoned designers and people in the industry who sit and, help educate me. I'm thinking about Jackie May. With Uttermost and Revelation, my rep. And, she was one of the first ones in the industry. She came to my house. This was way back in 2023, the beginning, before I even went to High Point, and literally sat at my dining table for like 2, 3 hours and just poured in knowledge into me as a new designer. And
Amazing.
I know, absolutely. So I'm always so appreciative of those who take the time and are giving and generous with their time and their knowledge, and have shared it with me. And it just helps me to want to do the same. Like, don't hoard information, like always help, not to, um, not collaboration, not competition. I guess that's the best way to say it, even if we're in the same market. And that's the thing, those that we share the same market, I'm still super thankful to them because they don't have to. Like, they could look at you like, oh, you're competition, but they don't, and they share. And I really think that's important.
So true. I mean, I'm such a big believer on collaboration over competition. I'm with you, Destiny. I
Mhm.
think that there's so much value and so much we have to learn, and it's such a fragmented industry, construction design, architecture, and there's so many challenges we all have. What keeps you up at night?
You want to know what keeps I don't even think it's what keeps me up. um Well, the business keeps me up. I will say that the business will keep me up. I like reading a lot. I just don't get to read as much as I would like to. So whenever I can like read, I do. But you want to know like what's a recurring like nightmare?
I would love to know. Yes.
My recurring nightmare is I'll be sleeping and thinking about like there's a client and a project out there that I have not touched or followed up on or like just forgot about. And I'm just like in my dreams, I'm like, Destiny, how did you not reach out to this person? What's wrong with you? Like it's like this missing project. And I'm like, they're gonna be so mad at you. And then I wake up and I'm sitting there like was that real? Like what,
Right.
so it's like this anxiety over maybe feeling like I'm doing like I'm missing something, like I'm moving so fast that I'm missing something. That is a recurring nightmare. Like recurring. So um
Maybe we need a psychiatrist because what's funny, Destiny, is along those lines, and I'm sure someone listening may have the answer, but I always have kind of a similar dream that like I'm late for an exam at school. I mean, you talk about education, that's a recurring one where I'm not prepared, or I missed the exam or test, or I don't know. There's just something with that where probably you and I and many others, try to be always prepared and strategic. And that dream where you're not, it's like total chaos.
oh my gosh, it's the worst. It is the worst. And I mean like I have it like almost once a month,
Yeah.
maybe. Like once a month, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like going through it. Now I have this like board. So we have two offices. This is one, and I have another office downstairs. And there's this board, and I keep my clients' names. And even in the dream, I'm like going through, like, okay, this person, this. Like I did, I touched it, and like who's this person that I'm missing? So, like I said, I think that's just was another indication. It's time to like slow down a little bit.
So, Destiny, let me ask you one more thing. What do you do for fun outside of pickleball and, of course, homeschool with your two daughters?
What do I do for fun? Um, like I said, aside from pickleball, like I haven't had fun in a really long time, honestly. But other than like, so I love game nights. So game nights are my jam. Going out to have like, my thing is I'm a foodie kind of.
Love it.
So
Love it. I love it.
so getting together with friends or family and just sharing a really good meal, that's fun for me. But definitely, I'm pretty competitive when it comes to like spades, games, um, now pickleball, and like I'm gonna smash this down on you, like So no, no, no. So that's pretty much it. My babies, my girls, they are a ball of energy and a ball of fun for me. And I just love being a mom, and I just want to be a mom to them that, I know my mom wanted to be to me, but probably couldn't, because, being a single mom and whatnot. So, I just really do try to be present as much as I can with them. And like I said, they're two little characters, so they keep me entertained all the time.
I love that. I love the competition, the killer instinct, and the priority of your daughters and everything else. So again, you've been an incredible guest, Destiny. I appreciate the friendship and you making time today, which I know is sacred for you with all that you have going on. So for our listeners, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Designer Destiny. Um, and I think that's my name. I changed it so many
Got
times,
it.
but I think it's Designer Destiny. And www.designerdestiny, Designed by Destiny .com. And yeah, I think that's it. Now, now, Brad, there's one other thing I forgot. I really want to talk to you about.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. And you can put this in wherever. Um, but another reason why I also had to slow down, and I didn't tell you about this, is that once I got started in design work, like I love it, but there is still a part of me that connects back to the classroom, like kind of like what we were talking about.
Hmm.
And with COVID, there were students that I my heart went out for them during COVID, because as an educator, I used to do home visits and try to connect with families, and as many would open their doors, I'll come visit them at their home. So I've seen homes that you would not want to live in,
Hmm.
depending on what school district I was working for at the time. And there were kids literally when we were on lockdown, it was like, I know this would drive me crazy. So with all that being said, when I started this work, probably about a good year and a half in, I was like, okay, God, like I love this work, but I really want to be able to do this work for people who need it the most. And so at the end of 2023, I formed a nonprofit called Giving Back by Design. And the goal of the nonprofit, our mission is to provide like no cost or free home makeovers for low income students and families that really need it the most. And we got new board members on. We were working really hard. We're hoping to really launch this school year, working with local schools and doing that work. The design, same work that I do for profit, but nonprofit for families that would never be able to afford my services, your services. Typically they live in, apartments, but just allowing people the opportunity, children especially, a space where they can come home and they feel really good about it. Because I do know, and just kind of aside, when I was an educator, one of the things I used was my superpower. I used to decorate my classroom really nicely, like really nicely. And the kids, I remember, coming in, they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And they loved. And kids from other classes just wanted to be in my class because it looked so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe then, just like I do now, like that spatial environment, like that it had an impact on how the kids performed in the class. Like if the class was organized, bright, pretty, that they would do well. And yeah, so I have brought that into now this new work, like, and trying to merge like the educator with the design. And yeah, so we'll be pushing out more information about it definitely like this year. But that now also is something that I'm like, I have to step back,
Mm-hmm.
and so that I can fully like work out this nonprofit. Who knows, maybe I might shift completely over to that side at some point. But right now, like 5%, I have um committed 5% of like what I get on my contracts to help fund that nonprofit, getting it started and whatnot. And I'm super excited about it. Like I'm probably almost as excited about Giving Back by Design as I am about Design by Destiny, because I cannot wait to kind of like do what I did for my mom for other families. Like I said, families who couldn't have done it themselves, to be able to provide design services for them. I'm super excited, and I'm super excited about the impact that I will make on children. And yeah, so I was like, I knew there was something else I meant to share with
It's incredible. I mean, Destiny, as if you don't have enough on your plate. I mean, such a
you.
worthy cause. I'm so impressed by all
Thank
that you're
you.
able to manage. So can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Brad.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.